I haven't made a video for you in a while, so I thought I would make one of two of my very favorite stories. One from a while ago when I lived in Benin, West Africa, and one that we tell at the current training that I get to be a part of for missionaries learning language. So here we go. So this was several years ago when I was living in Benin, West Africa, and one of the things I got to do was get feedback on the stories that we had crafted into the Mbeleme language. We went out and we took them to people who'd never heard anything of the Bible so that we could find out what they understood, because we wanted to make sure that the stories were really clear and communicated truth accurately. So there was this one village we used to go to that had a group of old men who'd never been to church. And we'd go out there and we'd play the story a couple of times, and then we'd get their feedback, ask them to tell the story back to us, and then I'd ask their opinions about some things that happened in the story. Well, one night we went out there, and our usual group of guys wasn't there. There was just one man who hadn't come to any of the other groups, and he was super proud that he'd never set foot in a church. So I played this story for him. So the man and the woman were there in the garden that God had created, and they were taking care of each other and it was very, very good. But then one day something happened that changed everything. The snake, the sneakiest of all the animals that God had made, came to the woman and said, "Did God really tell you you couldn't eat any of the fruit off any of the trees in this whole garden?" And Eve said, "No, of course we can eat the fruit. It's just that fruit from that one tree in the middle of the garden. If we eat it or even touch it, we'll die." You will not die. God just knows that the day that you eat that fruit, you'll become like him, knowing right from wrong. Well, she was convinced. That fruit was beautiful, and it looked like it would taste just absolutely delicious, and it would make her so wise. So she took the fruit and she ate it, and then she gave it to her husband, who was standing right there, and he ate some too. And all of a sudden, they realized that they were naked, and they were ashamed. So they got some big leaves and they made like clothes for themselves. Well, later that day, like he always did, God came to walk in the garden with them. But when they heard him coming, they were scared, so they hid behind some bushes. And God said, "Adam, where are you?" And Adam said, "I'm hiding because I'm naked and I'm afraid." God said, "Who told you were naked? Did you eat some of the fruit from that tree I told you not to eat off?" And the man said, "It's that woman you gave me. She gave me the fruit and I ate it." And God said to the woman, "How could you do such a thing?" And she said, "It's the snake. He tricked me, so I ate it." And God said to the snake, "Because of what you've done, you are cursed. You're going to slither around on the ground on your stomach, and your mouth is going to be full of dust. And your offspring and the woman's offspring are going to be enemies. You will bite his heel, but he will crush your head." And then he said to the woman, "Because of what you've done, now childbirth is going to be painful and you're going to suffer." And then he said to the man, "Because of what you've done, the ground is cursed. You're going to have to work and work to get your food out of it. You're going to have to get your food by the sweat of your brow. And when you die, you're going to return to this dirt." And then God looked at the man and the woman, and he made them clothes out of animal skins. And then he said to himself, "I can't let them stay here in the garden. They've already eaten from the tree that makes you know the difference between good and evil. If they eat from the tree that gives life, they're going to live forever. I can't let them stay here." So he made them leave the garden, and he put spirit beings with flashing swords at the entrance to the garden so they couldn't get back in. And that's my story. So this is the only story this guy has heard, right? It's not a happy story. It's not a feel-good story at all. It's not what I would lead with, I don't think, if I was picking out the first story for someone to hear. but this was the first story he heard. This was the story I was there to get feedback on. So I asked him, why do you think God made clothes out of animal skins for the man and the woman? And this man, who had never heard anything except for this one hard story, said, well, God loved them so much, he couldn't leave them the way they were. So another one of my favorite stories is more of an explanation. So you know how at Babel, the people decided, we don't want to get all spread out. We're going to build this tower so that we can stay together and be one people. And God was like, nope. So he scattered them all out, and he made it so that they broke into groups that spoke different languages, and they couldn't understand each other anymore. Well, so this is a problem, right, for the spread of the kingdom of God? It would be very much better if everybody just spoke the same language, right? Then sharing the good news of what Jesus has done for us, there wouldn't be any language barriers. Anybody would be able to go and do it without having to do anything about learning a language or anything, right? But no. God intended that people be broken into groups that couldn't understand each other, that can't understand each other. And that is so that the gospel spreads better and that God's kingdom spreads more truly. Why? Because this way, the people that have the treasure, the knowledge of Jesus in us and what he's done for us, we have to come into another group low as learners. And we have to come in humbly. That way, the attention is not on us as treasure bearers, but it's on the treasure that we are bringing to the people. I love that interpretation of the Tower of Babel. So those are two of my favorite stories. What are yours? See ya!